Join us today for a kind of open-ended discussion on the X-Men of Marvel Comics fame. Welcome back to those who've been here before. Welcome to those who are new to the channel. This is Geek Cabal channel. I'm Bobby. This is Jim. And today we're going to be, I guess this is going to be somewhat of an experiment. Now, the vast majority of our videos are informal. It's just topics we're fairly knowledgeable on and just talking about things we like to talk about. But we usually have at least some kind of an idea as to where we're going to take things and an end goal. And then every once in a great while, we actually have it kind of mapped out. But today, this is going to be more of we're just going to like pick a point and just kind of go like you see in more like a podcasting type format. And that is somewhat the test for what this is, just to see how that actually plays out with us. So we're just going to go not very long, hopefully. Hopefully we're going to max out at less than a half hour here, because this is, like I said, primarily a test. And we just went with a topic that we're both reasonably knowledgeable on, so we'll just see where the conversation goes. But just some background. I've read a number of the X-Men comics. I would say somewhere between a quarter and a half of what's out there if I had to place a number on it. I'm at the moment collecting some of the older stuff in the omnibus format, which are giant hardcover books, so I can read through them. So I have gotten partway through the Claremont era, but most of that was before I was born, so don't have originals on that. But I have read later stuff as it's come out, and everything for the last 5 or 6 years probably as it's come out, and except for my current backlog, but that's not important. So anyway, you've seen the movies and the 90s animated series, which I thought was spectacular. Haven't seen many of the other animated series, to be honest, or I haven't anyway. Seen parts of the anime series. For those of you who don't know, Marvel made like 4 different anime series, one for Iron Man, one for Blade, one for Wolverine specifically, and one for the X-Men. And I've seen about half of the Wolverine one and half of the X-Men one, and all the Iron Man one. It was actually pretty good.
Did you happen to see the motion comic that they had on? I think it was on Netflix for a while, where it was a motion. It was all comic style, but they added motion to it pretty much.
I have not.
That was kind of a weird format, because it's like, it looks cool, but it also looks weird because it's...
Yeah, I've watched a motion comic. I think it was the Inhumans motion comic, but I haven't seen any of the X-Men.
Because I know, at least the one that I saw, I believe, has where Wolverine enters the atmosphere alongside Armor. Armor is fine because she can create armor. So
sure,
but Wolverine's like, you have to give me a moment. My skin's gone, my flesh is gone. I gotta regrow that.
Yeah, there was a point in time that would have been a fatal incident for Wolverine. But that's back in the days whenever gunshots actually hurt him and slowed him down.
Kind of like when gunshots didn't hurt Superman, but throwing the gun at him did.
Where was that?
Oh, the old black and white Superman. They always had where the guy would load the gun into him, and then the guy would throw the gun at him, and then he'd have to always dodge the gun.
Yeah. I guess for more practical reasons, but
no, it turned out the actual gun itself was his kryptonite, not the bullets.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but no, it's like, for me personally, like a lot of mine was a lot of the video games.
The arcade game.
Well, like I own both the Sega Genesis ones, and hell, there may be more, but I know there's X-Men and then X-Men 2, The Clone Wars. I've got those. All of the X-Men Legends, that 1 and 2, were very good, and then playing Ultimate Alliance, which I believe also had a number of
X people, yeah.
Yeah. Um, a lot of that, again, the 90s show. I did watch all of X-Men Evolution and Wolverine and the X-Men at one point.
I saw parts of Wolverine and the X-Men and the like random one-off episodes of X-Men Evolution.
Yeah.
Like a couple of them that dealt with Apocalypse primarily, but
X-Men Evolution was kind of a thing of its time. It was definitely not as much of, I mean, they still had like the whole mutant thing, but it was definitely toned back. And then Wolverine and the X-Men kind of went the complete opposite. It was very much more Sentinel based, and
I think the main lasting contribution of X-Men Evolution is the women who like to dress up as Rogue from that particular iteration versus the like the more '90s appearance. I definitely, depending on the convention and everything, I definitely see more of one or the other. But that seems to be the lasting impact, at least as near as I can tell. But yeah, no, if you haven't ever seen it, I believe it's on Disney Plus. The '90s X-Men cartoon it's good. I've seen complaints about it, and I think it mainly has to do with the art style. I don't know, it didn't bother me, but it does seem to bother other people. Now, just for those of you who are interested, the general appearances of everybody is based on Jim Lee's artwork from the very brief period where he and Chris Claremont were both on the book. The number one issue there being, I believe, still has the title for the highest selling single issue of any comic book ever. So that means it's basically worthless, by the way, if you're a speculator. Because, well, there's people who already have boxes of them. There are 5 different covers. The A through the E, A, B, C, and D collectively form an interlocking image. E is a fold-out cover with all of them. It's worth ever so slightly more than the other 4. Yeah, that was back in the beginning of the big craze in the '90s that very nearly destroyed the comic book industry. And I think we're working towards that again, by the way. A lot of gimmicks, a lot of not real people buying the books and reading them. Somehow Marvel has yet to figure out how to translate billion-dollar movies into getting people to buy more comics. And since they haven't done so in 10 years, I don't think they're going to anytime soon. DC's in the same boat, however, so maybe it's a omnipresent problem. But yeah, so all the appearances in the cartoon are based on the '90s comics artwork. A lot of the stories, however, are from Claremont's run, so from the '70s and the '80s. Like they have a version of the Phoenix Saga. They had to take into account the characters they had in the show versus in the original storyline, but all the beats are still there. Days of Future Past, I believe, got an episode or 2, and then some later ones that kind of mixed in Bishop and Nimrod, because I don't know that those are all actually the same timeline, or at least originally I don't know that they were. They are now, basically, but yeah. Amazingly, Days of Future Past, this huge, well-known storyline, it's 2 issues in the comics. And, yeah, you have no idea, like, how things actually resolve. You don't know if the mission to change the past actually succeeded or not in the original storyline.
You don't get the Wolverine going back in the past to kill somebody, then Wolverine going back in the past to kill himself.
Oh, no. No, that's an Age of Ultron.
I know. But
because the Days of Future Past storyline doesn't even have, it's not even Wolverine that goes back in time. It's Shadowcat. And for whatever it's worth, even though I think Days of Future Past is probably the best of the X-Men movies, their bit of logic behind that was just mind-numbingly stupid. But because Wolverine's powers heal his physical form, like his brain, not his mind. Because they're not sending him physically back in time. So it doesn't matter. And if his healing powers could heal his mind, he wouldn't be missing all of his damn memories. So it's nonsensical bullshit.
That's just a way to get...
It's just had to have Hugh Jackman in the movie. I get it from a marketing perspective, I get it. And Shadowcat wasn't exactly the most thrilling character in the movies. So I'm amazed that they even found a way to include her in it to make it at least a call out to the original storyline. But in the original storyline, they had to send her because all the X-Men had been trained by Xavier to resist psychic manipulation. So it couldn't work. They couldn't send themselves back. She was too new to the team, though, so she didn't have that training yet. So it had to be her. And it was a plot to kill Senator Kelly. And had it happened, it would have set everything into motion to eventually lead to Xavier being assassinated and then the Sentinels taking over and all kinds of other awfulness. But like I said, yeah, she goes back to the future, and who knows? It's not until the follow-up series that you find out that it didn't quite work. Like, their future still existed. And eventually Rachel Summers comes back. Then she goes forward in time, and she actually does fix things by reprogramming Master Mold using the Phoenix Force.
As one does.
Yeah, comic stuff. Because, as the cartoon pointed out, the big flaw the Sentinels ultimately have is they become self-aware enough to realize just how stupid the whole human-mutant war thing is. And they're like, well, mutants are just a variation of humans, so you've really just asked us to protect you from yourselves. And that's when Boulevard Trask, like, no, you've totally misunderstood. I have to blow you up now. I'm going to use this brainwave machine that I'm going to aim it at a natural gas pipe. Which didn't harm Master Mold at all, but Professor X loading up the Blackbird with TNT did. I don't know.
That's from the show.
That's from the animated series, yeah. Had Magneto protecting him, then he bailed out and rammed the jet into Master Mold, and I think conventional bombs would have been more destructive, but, or the engine.
Did he have protection against Magneto at that point?
Oh, yeah, so...
Because Magneto's go...
Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it, the Sentinels have this, really robotic voice, halt, mutant. And so... Magneto is going to kill Senator Kelly by dropping a big generator on him, and he tries to stop one of the Sentinels, and he's like, my powers won't work. He's like, this generation is made of plastic. And Magneto's like, oh, shit. So I'm assuming Master Mold had also upgraded his own body to be like that. So but no, the best thing with Master Mold, though, is there's at least 2 Master Molds in the cartoon, because one for sure gets destroyed in Genosha, when the dam that's powering him gets blown up and he gets smashed. And so he knows it's coming, so he stands up from his throne and starts to walk away, and he looks down, he's like, I am still plugged in. And then the wall falls, just flattens him and all the Sentinels. But it's like, who the hell are you even talking to? You're a robot. Who are you talking to? There's no one else there, But it's just the observation of, I am still, like he couldn't just, pull the cord or something. But no, the way they portrayed them in the cartoon is a little wonky. Master Mold literally builds the Sentinels inside of him, and I am relatively certain that's not how it works in the comics. It's actually like a factory, and Master Mold programs the Sentinels and changes the production lines and things like that.
Plastic, though. I mean, you're just asking for another X-Men. Be like, oh, I have the power of fire. Well, now you're melting.
Yeah. Well, the Sentinels altogether, and I'm going to do a video on them at some point, because I've done one on X-Men villains in general, but the Sentinels in particular, I just need to get a few of the older issues to kind of read the original appearances and things like that, because I've read a lot of the later appearances. But the Sentinels have different generations in the comics, and it's the Mark II is actually a real problem for anyone they face, because they're the ones that can adapt. And they were made by Larry Trask, Boulevard Trask's son, who ended up also being a mutant, and I'm pretty sure that ended very poorly for him. But yeah, they had the ability to adapt, and they're the ones that Cyclops out-logicked whenever they're fighting him. He's like, hey, look, you can kill me, but there's still going to be mutants born. Your problem is radiation. Your problem is the sun. Go fight that. And the Sentinel's like, that's what we'll do. So they fly off to the sun. Then they come back, I think, in an Avengers issue. And like the main one has like developed the ability like to teleport and all kinds of crap. And so it's like, yeah, the Mark Twos are a real problem. Fortunately, they all got destroyed, but bits and pieces of their technology gets incorporated into some of the later ones, and ultimately leads to Nimrod, who's like the ultimate Sentinel, basically unstoppable. But yeah, so to your point, they would have probably already overcome the whole like, oh, our plastic will melt thing with something else.
Well, there's ways of negating Magneto's powers, even if you are composed of metal. Some that counteracts magnetic fields, things like
Yeah.
that. Supposedly, Iron Man at one point had an armor that could negate Magneto's
Are you
powers.
talking about during Avengers versus X-Men?
Yeah, I believe.
Hang on.
Why they didn't work for him so well.
What Iron Man did, if I'm recalling correctly, obviously the armor couldn't be metal because Magneto, just
Come into jelly.
So it was something else, some other composite, and he pulled upon the magnetic field of I think Jupiter to like try to screw with Magneto and to have a different magnetic field that he wasn't used to, and so he shot up with a bunch of projectiles, and I think it's the point where Magneto was like, "Oh yes, I knew that was a familiar feel," because obviously because he's been out in space.
Space.
And Magneto got to the point that he was about to win the fight. Like, was at the, all right, it's time to deliver the death blow. And then I think the weird thing with the Phoenix happened right then. Something happened to distract him, and like Stark like landed a blow, and he's like, all right, fine, whatever you want, and then just kind of walked away. So like Iron Man should not ever stand any chance, because if nothing else, Magneto can do the old, well, I'm just going to stop the blood flowing to your brain trick.
Well, like I say, pretty much most of the Avengers would have an issue with Magneto.
Yeah.
Because I don't even think, because couldn't he still even manipulate Thor's hammer too?
Well, that's one of the weird. I don't know, like from a comic perspective, if they ever covered it. I have to assume they have. But you do run into the whole like, yeah, he's a mutant. Yeah, it's metal, but it's also magic. And so
Didn't he have Thor's hammer in the Ultimate timeline?
he might have, but that's the Ultimates universe. Like,
yeah, nothing of that. No, that was just off topic because I think that's also where he gets obliterated by Cyclops.
Could be. Cyclops could blow him away if he caught him without his shield down. But yeah, most of the Avengers have trouble with him. Probably Monica Rambeau could probably deal with him though. If I had to guess, maybe Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, or as she was known at the time throughout most of the 80s and 90s, Miss Marvel. They could probably take him. Just depends on how their energy powers interact. But no, Magneto is a beneficiary of having been around since the 60s, and eventually some people that actually understood magnetism started writing him, and were like, hey, if this guy could control magnetism, he could do like a lot. And so he's an example of a character that's tremendously benefited from someone that actually kind of knew what they were talking about at some point, wrote him, and everyone else is like, oh my god, like he's just basically unstoppable, isn't he?
Yeah, because the only thing you could really do at that point is say, okay, he doesn't have as much control or doesn't have as much manipulation. Because pretty much the way they had him at one point is pretty much the Earth's magnetic poles are all at his.
Yeah, that's his that's his deal in the comics a few times. He's gotten a little try to get a little big for his britches, so to speak, and it's like, I can wield the powers of a god. Then it's like, my powers got burned out. Like someone could poke me with a stick and kill me right now. Good thing half the planet doesn't hate me for some random reason or the other. And then no one comes along and pokes him with a stick and kills him. Yeah, Apocalypse is kind of like that too, in that, yeah, it's one thing to say, oh, you can control every molecule in your body. It's another to get someone to be like, oh, so in other words, he could do all of the things, right? And they're, oh, yeah, I guess he could, couldn't he?
So does he have more ability to control his molecules than Molecule Man does?
Molecule Man can control other molecules. Presumably also his own, but he can control, like, like turn the Earth into a diamond kind of stuff. Apocalypse can only control his own molecules.
And I think his Molecule Man's biggest limitations is his own mind, his own.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
that's why Doctor Doom had to kind of manipulate him to do things and
to
get it to work.
Yeah, but as far as Apocalypse, he's also the beneficiary of very recently, say the last 10, 15 years, being written by people that actually tried to make him a character and not just a plot device. So they have developed the hell out of his backstory. He went from basically like genocidal megalomaniac to probably still genocidal megalomaniac, but for the right reasons, with a family, and now kind of with the X-Men.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Like, it's amazing how they're trying to make all the things that they've written about him all somehow work together, because some of it really shouldn't at this point. Especially since they keep adding things to it. Because originally it was just, oh, he's all about survival of the fittest. Okay. Then it was, oh, maybe he's secretly trying to force X Factor to do his bidding and or compete in his survival of the fittest Olympics type thing. To, oh, he's got celestial stuff. To, oh, the celestials tasked him to do this. But also, it's been his creed since he was born in ancient Egypt. And just like on, and like it even got to one point where some people that were associated with him talk about his frequent opium binges to try to have visions. And it's like, well, that came out of left field. I mean, I guess if you're an immortal with some supreme healing factor, sure, go ahead. But yeah, like the idea of just out of the blue, like, oh yeah, totally, chasing the dragon constantly. It's like, okay. Followed up by, then there's the, hey, he actually has a wife and kids out there, and although that followed up, hey, there's a whole like clan of people that are his descendants, at least two of whom are X-Men types, Blink and Chamber, in case you're interested, formerly of Generation X. The team, not the actual Generation X, I don't think.
Hold on a second. Make sure they're there. They decided to talk over the video. It's a great thing about recording with children is that you occasionally get some interruptions in there, but
that's all right.
Yeah. But Owen was hoping that we'd get a topic in today that he would be able to really talk into, and I said, well, we'll figure it out. He's really wanting you to see that movie, so to get that topic there. But no, I was trying to. We were talking about the '90s or the 90s show. And I'm trying to remember if they had the same stipulation that Spider-Man's the 90s Spider-Man show had, where Spider-Man literally couldn't punch anybody.
Like, I would have to watch it again. There are some things that are obvious in hindsight now that I'm an adult. Like, all the weapons are laser weapons, and
same thing they did with like G.I. Joe and.
Well, a big difference with G.I. Joe was real early on, like the first or second 5-episode movie. They acknowledged that the weapons were lasers and that they will burn you and hurt you if they hit you. They just weren't bullets. They acknowledged point blank, these are laser weapons.
But they also just shot up wildly into the air.
Well, sure. I mean, there's the fact, they shot wildly into the air. Anytime any aircraft got hit at all, you could clearly see the person parachute to safety. I believe there was all of one fatality in the original series. The headman, the drug dealer. Yeah, it's part of the Dare episodes. Someone on the Joe team, and for some reason I think it was Lieutenant Falcon, but I could be wrong. It's been forever since I've seen it. And the sister to one of the Crimson Guards or something on the Cobra side became smack addicts, and well, Joe and the Cobra team both decided that they can't have the ranks falling into the old nose candy, so they had teamed up to take down the headman, and he was literally buried under a mountain of drugs. And you literally just see his hand, like, and like over the ends, like, talking about the Dare thing, you just see his dead hand sticking out of the pile of drugs. Although there was an episode with Cesspool, the other thing, the Eco Warriors guy, once they were done talking about drugs, they'd talk about the environment. and he had like some kind of like acidic sludge, and definitely whenever he like went to the Cobra Commander, like, hey, I'm joining the team, basically, he sprays down like a bunch of dudes, and several of them, most of them were bats, robots, battle android troopers, but a few of them were range vipers, real guys, and they're like half melted into the deck plate. Like, I'm pretty sure they didn't make it, or at the very least, Doctor Mindbender made sure the rest of their life was rather interesting. But yeah, no, in the X-Men series, all the weapons are laser weapons. Anytime Storm takes off, she gets shot down because they realize just how OP her powers were. Beast spent the whole first season in jail. Professor X gets knocked out all the time before he can do anything with his powers. Just all kinds of stuff like that. And yeah, like the characters with energy powers were allowed to just wail on each other. I think they were allowed to hit because Rogue hits people. And so does Colossus, and so does the Juggernaut, and so does Apocalypse.
Are they allowed to hit each other because they consider mutants not people?
That could be the case, Jim. I don't know where I think it was Saban actually was a major contributor to that. I don't know where they fall on that issue. We'd have to consult the archives of the Power Rangers to try to suss that one out. But they also produced the Power Rangers. Casey did Haim Saban. I don't remember. I think he's an Israeli, if I remember right. Big time money guy, and that was actually part of the problem trying to get the rights back. They had to come to some kind of an agreement with him over that and Spider-Man, because I think Saban made that one as well.
I think that's also how they got back. He got back Power Rangers though too.
Yeah, because they had it and they basically drove it in the ground because they didn't know what they were doing. So he bought it back for less than he sold it to them for, and has since turned it back into a major franchise. So at least through licensing stuff, I don't know if there's a current show. But yeah, there's weird things like that. That's
luckily
they're kids' cartoons.
I say luckily we didn't have the X-Men PSAs like the
the G.I. Joe PSAs.
Yes.
Oh, those are gold. I needed the Joes to tell me not to play in traffic, or not to handle down power lines, or hide in a refrigerator.
Yes, the hiding in the refrigerator, which is funny because like this generation, most people are like, "What's hiding in a refrigerator? You can just push it open," and not realizing that refrigerators from like the 40s and 50s had locking refrigerator doors that you actually had to pull on the handle to unlatch, and God, I just couldn't imagine how many people would have been lost if we hadn't seen that.
Yeah, let's see. There was all that. There was Doc telling you not to get in your parents' pill cabinet. I don't remember which one of the Joes was. Kid's got a basketball game coming up. It's like, oh, get a candy bar. It's like, hey, you should eat this apple instead. It's better for you. The other's just going to give you a quick little jolt of sugar energy, and this will actually sustain you for a little bit. Little things like that. And if you folks have never seen them, some of the good folks here somewhere on YouTube took it upon themselves to re-edit these, and they're interesting to say the least.
The fire one where
the fire one is the best with is it barbecue, I think. These two kids are sitting there and it's the original PSA but a different language, and the one kid's like, oh, like you shouldn't cook, and he's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Then, oh shit, the house is on fire. And the other one comes, barbecue comes in, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? Get the hell out of here. And they get outside, and it's like, my God, that smelled delicious. And when he runs, he's like, pork chop sandwiches. It's just look up G.I. Joe PSAs. If I think about where I edit this, I'll put a link to them in the description. But they're definitely not safe for work. They're very language intensive. And some of them are just downright weird. Like whenever Doc just starts singing like a Jamaican, I think, for the pills, and I think Airtight comes in and is just like, and they're like, what the hell? And he just like teleports the kids out.
I'd say probably also some not so PC stuff anymore, probably.
Oh yeah, no. Like whenever Spirit comes in, one of the kids is on fire, and Spirit, who's a Native American, comes in and throws a blanket on him and rolls him around the ground. And he's just like, ooh, like some kind of weird made up language that's, I guess, supposed to what they think the Native American, what his language approximates as. And after saving his life, one of his friends is like, you didn't steal anything from our tents, did you? Or something like that. And it's like, what? Yeah, definitely not not PC at all on that one. Of course, I'm sure some people probably have a problem with the fact that the only Native American on the team is a tracker. Or, I mean, eventually there's another Native American on the team who is, I think, actually named Tracker. So, however, I ask you, how many of you have seen any fictional team with not one, but two Native Americans on it? I mean, that just doesn't happen. And it should.
Yeah, of course. No, most definitely.
Yeah, no, the G.I. Joe team was like insanely diverse. All kinds of several black characters, several women. This is the 80s in frontline combat special mission roles. Like, yeah. And you also had a few Asians, Quick Kick mainly. Now, Quick Kick's a bit of a stereotype, but, you know, it's a kid's cartoon. Cobra was also, like, internationally diverse if you read everyone's backgrounds. Destro's Scottish, the Baroness is, I think, French. Tomax and Zaymod are from Corsica. Major Blood is Australian. I mean, you know, it was a broad range of characters in that show. And similarly with the X-Men. Now, with the X-Men, this started in Giant Size X-Men #1, because the original team is 5 white people from the U.S., led by a rich white guy, also from the U.S. And it's not until Giant Size X-Men, which is where they relaunched the series, because after issue, I want to say 66, the next like 30 issues are just reprints of past issues. And it's not till 94 it's 94, 95 is the next actual new issue. But Giant Size X-Men #1 introduced the international team, which is Wolverine, who's Canadian, Storm, she's an American, but her parents were from Africa, and she went with them back to Africa, and that's where they were killed in an accident in a bombing or something in Egypt. And she remained in Africa and was raised and grew up there. So she's international, even though she is technically an American. Colossus, who's Russian, Banshee, who's Irish. Sunfire made a number of appearances. He's Japanese. And Thunderbird's in the first few issues until he gets killed by, I believe it's Count Nefaria or Moses Magnum. It's been a little bit since I've read him. But he's a Native American. So the team got considerably more diverse there. Once he's gone, eventually Shadowcat shows up. Younger character. She's a female character. She's Jewish. And then just other characters kind of show up as it progresses from there. But I'm only so far into it. And that's still the major composition of the team.
So in the original run of the X-Men, though, was Xavier, was that a school, or was he just throwing together a team of?
Well, yes. It is a school. He is, teaching the kids, actual math and physics and history. But it's also to train them, and they're the first team. Cyclops, Jean, Angel, Beast, and Iceman. Now you find out decades later, in like the 2000s, in a major retcon, that there was a second team before the Giant Size X-Men team, because off panel, because you never actually see it happen, the original team got captured by Krakoa. Cyclops was able to escape, and he comes and tells Xavier what happened. Xavier goes to Moira McTaggart, who's also training a group of people with powers, who includes Gabriel Summers, who's the third Summers brother, and his codename is Vulcan. And I don't know if Xavier had told him yet that was his brother, but he definitely mind wipes the fact that his brother goes there, and I think removes all notion of his brother even existing. So it's him, Darwin, and a couple others like Petra and Swear, the names that are coming to mind, but it's been a while since I read Deadly Genesis, which is where they cover this. And they also get beaten by Krakoa. So then they have to send the third team, the international team from Giant Size X-Men, to go and rescue them. And they don't rescue the other team. I don't remember why. I think they got shot off into space or something. And so they're just kind of chilling up there, and then whenever the Scarlet Witch goes crazy at the end of M Day and takes out most of the mutants. Well, Beast is kind of like, well, you can't just destroy all that energy. It's got to go somewhere, and like it's going to this point right here in space. Well, it's Vulcan absorbing all that power from like 99% of the mutants on the planet because he'd been kept alive because he like merged with Darwin because Darwin basically can't be killed. He can adapt to anything. And Vulcan is an Omega level energy manipulator. So once he had his powers back and like was like supercharged, then he went down to Earth for a reckoning with Xavier.
Xavier's an asshole.
Yes, as the comics have gone on, you have found out that Xavier is in fact a very shady individual. Noble goal, occasionally noble ends and means, but willing to play dirty. Very, very dirty.
He gets creepy at a couple of points too, doesn't he?
Well, it's heavily implied that he's got a thing for Jean at several points, even though he should be like a couple of decades older than her. Then again, so does Wolverine, and he's like 80 years older than her, and can't get it through his thick adamantium skull that she's married. But, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas the current iteration of all that is apparently they're in I believe it's called a throuple. Wolverine, Jean, and Cyclops. Although it could actually be extended to I think Emma Frost could also still be involved in that too, because Cyclops was with her for a while. I don't know, I'm a little behind on the current Krakoan era, because, well, it's basically just them sitting around the island and seeing who's sleeping with who. Not really much happening on the, fighting villains front. Except for Mr. Sinister, who is also now benefiting and or suffering from the, hey, let's give this guy an overly elaborate backstory that we never knew about up till now, and all kinds of other baloney we're just going to chuck in there. Like the fact there's 4 of him. The diamond on the forehead, that's the diamond from a deck of cards kind of diamond. One has a spade, one has a club, and one has a, what's the other symbol?
Heart?
A heart, yeah. Yep, haven't got that far yet, sounded stupid. Holding off reading it.
Well, with a name like Mr. Sinister, I don't know how you expect anything good from him.
Yeah, he is like the most comic booky villain next to Doctor Doom that Marvel has, for sure. I mean, Doctor Doom is like comic book villain to the hilt. Speaks in the third person. His name is Victor Von Doom. Wears a cape, which these are all things that Marvel characters generally don't do. Notably, Sinister also wears a cape. So,
but this is how it goes. I mean, obviously, like Doctor Strange. Well, the reason they obviously went with the name because it's strange. But well, I mean, like even Apocalypse. I mean, it's at some points like, can we just call you by your real name? And like, no, you can call me Apocalypse. It's all right. It'll be coming.
Interesting you bring that up. There is actually an issue where after they've all kind of made peace and all the mutants are living together on Krakoa. Yes, the same Krakoa that was the villain, like back in the 70s. Apocalypse, Magneto, and Xavier go to like some kind of World Economic Forum kind of meeting in Davos. And there's a guy that even asks him, like, so do you prefer Apocalypse or In Saba Nur? And he's just like, Apocalypse. So, yeah.
He's like, don't worry, it's still coming at some point, just not yet.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he took at least during the early part of the Krakoa era, he seemed to be like, all right, we'll just let the humans destroy themselves. Like, this is kind of what we're all been building towards, is all of us together. We'll be stronger this way. Because one of the laws of Krakoa is that mutants aren't allowed to kill humans, except in, like, self-defense or something.
Well, supposedly, about every other tweet now is about how we're going to be ending the world in 5 years anyways, and then it's already been 5 years, and it's just 5 more years going on.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like how fusion power is always 20 years in the future.
Yeah.
Well, it has gotten closer, folks. There have been a few developments recently that are promising, but
yeah, because they actually created a reaction that had more output than they put into it, which is
which is the goal, just to keep it going. But so yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those things. But no, it's really funny because in that issue he's wearing a suit, and so everyone's kind of wondering, So did he just morph the suit into existence, or did he actually have someone like cut him a suit for his like 8 foot tall frame? And yeah.
I'd like to think that he actually went to a tailor. Just imagine that.
Oh, there's a tailor on Krakoa. He works for Emma Frost. His name's Jumbo Carnation. He's got 4 arms, and he's like the tailor. So.
And for those that don't know, Krakoa is a living island, isn't it?
Yeah, and basically what they did was they sent Doug Ramsey, who has the power to read any language. I don't know about speak, but he can definitely read any language. Which you probably think, oh, that's a dorky power, until you realize like machines have languages too. So he's actually, kind of up there. To like talk to Krakoa and make a deal with it. And so Krakoa has to be sustained by mutant energies. And so I believe that they just they either feed it clones of people, or they just let it take like a 0.5% of energy from everybody, which is more than enough to sustain it. It's one of those kind of deals. And the mutants they have overseeing it are Selene and Implate, who are themselves mutant vampire types. So, I guess the idea is, well, they understand the conditions, so, and of course, then people watch them. A lot of that going on there in Krakoa. No one kept an eye on Apocalypse, though.
The
living, or Mr. Sinister, for that matter.
So, is the island able to actually move around?
Yes, they can move. And there's actually another island, and there used to be one giant island, Krakoa and Araco, until they were sundered from some kind of demon invasion thing. And now they have rejoined, I believe. Or they might have split again, because I know the mutants from Araco got sent to Mars.
Because I get the sentient island. Okay, I can be fine with that. I still want to know how Danny the Street.
Danny the Street, the greatest character in the DC universe.
I know it's DC, but because I know in the first time I actually saw that character was in DC Scribblenauts, which is a game where you can write down or type out like what you want your character to have. Like if you want your character to have a gun. In this case, if you wanted a certain superhero or supervillain to appear, you would write down their name, and that villain would appear, or that hero would appear. And yes, Danny the Street was a street that you could ride as a vehicle to move around the level. And I just don't understand that. Is it that?
Yeah, I don't know Danny the Street's origins.
That's going to be something I have to do some research.
What comic is that in?
Great if he had its own comic.
No, it's he gets used in Grant Morrison's run on it'll come to me here in a second. They had a HeroClix faction for them. There weren't very many of them, and they all had the weird resurrection trait, where after they died, you'd roll a die to see if they came back. And they have a show on HBO. Well, HBO Max. It's got 3 or 4 seasons. And I'm completely drawing a blank on them.
The Outsiders.
No, it's not The Outsiders.
Because they had, because I'm trying, now I'm just trying to think of all the different power sets they had there, but I'll let you look that up if you want to.
Yeah, it should just take me a second here.
No, it's... other things make sense. Just the street was just, that's a, I guess that's kind of silly because anything like like the living planets. I mean, Ego. Well, you also have it in DC as well, because you've got the Green Lantern one. No, is it Mogo?
Oh, you mean the one that is a Green Lantern?
Yes, it's a planet.
Yeah, it's Mogo.
At some point, I think we just go and do a list of just some of our favorite absurd characters.
The Doom Patrol is who it was. Yes, which, as I mentioned, they do have a show. It's on HBO Max, and I believe it's in season 2. Danny the Street makes a number of appearances.
As just a street?
Yes.
Does he talk?
Yeah, with the signs on the buildings and like the newspapers that are drifting around. Yeah, it's great. Spoiler alert, he gets reduced to like a single brick. Like he gets blown up and all that's left is I think a brick or something. And I think the professor's got to try to figure out how to fix him. Timothy Dalton.
That's something else.
Yeah, and Brendan Fraser, he's one of the characters too. Machine Man, maybe? Something like that. Now, some people have actually compared the Doom Patrol to the X-Men because they came out very close to each other in the comics, and they're both like teams of weirdo freaks, you know. So, and Grant Morrison's done a run on both of them.
That sounded wrong, but
yes, it did.
Not that kind of run. It's
no.
Right.
Although, want to know Grant Morrison? Maybe. Weird guy. Weird creative way, not something else. Yeah, I believe his run is where they introduced the idea of secondary mutations, which I don't know that they've ever given them to any characters outside of that run. But the ones that had them, like they still play them up to the hilt, especially Emma Frost, her diamond form. So, although on Krakoa, some of the characters that were being resurrected were coming back stronger and stronger each time. Like Xavier, I think has started to develop telekinetic powers now, which he doesn't natively have, or they're insanely like low powered. Because he's pure telepath. Jean's the one that has both.
Yeah. But lately I've been seeing on online about Deadpool 3 coming up, and it's actually nice to see the classic uniform. I mean, obviously done in a way that is not spandex, because I don't. Unfortunately, probably fortunately. Spandex in real life does not look what it does in the comics. It's not just
no. The only character it works on is Spider-Man.
Usually, you just get very awkward, not appealing, not anything.
I take that back. I imagine the Fantastic Four uniforms are going to look like that too, because that's basically what they are.
I was going to say, you mentioned people at conventions. I was going to say, a lot of people dress up as Miss Marvel wearing the kind of the spandex suit. Usually looks pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say this, and I do not mean to actually put down anyone that's going to cosplay as any of these characters, but I've always considered that like the cheap way out. Just the one-piece bodysuit.
Yeah. It's
just like, all right, so you went on Amazon and spent like $50 on something. Like, that's fine. Again, that's right up there with like the t-shirts I wear, to conventions. It's just, to me, that's not putting effort into it. I've been to the costume contest there at Gen Con several times, and like, there's effort, and then there's that. Now, that, still getting up on stage, that takes guts, and again, I'm not trying to put anyone down. But then there's the effort of the people that build like the mechanical thing that allows them to have wings that expand out to 18 feet. That's effort. The guy that dressed up like Jarlaxle from the Forgotten Realms one year, also being bold enough to just wear like complete blackout on his skin, and the guy was definitely a white guy. But he had the martial arts skill to make the whole presentation work, and to actually be able to fight with two swords at the same time, which is, as I understand it, exceptionally difficult. But yeah.
Well, and to that point, like if they wear those outfits, but not to like be in the costume contest, but just to wear an outfit, I mean, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I think it's, if that's one of your favorite characters.
Yeah, right. Like I said, I view it the same way as like the t-shirts I wear, like they're t-shirts I bought for those kinds of things with things I like on them. It's the same concept, just a little bit more. And it takes, it still takes guts to wear them, because like if you're not in very good shape, like that's not going to help.
Well, that's like the few people I've seen dress up as Cammy. I'm like, Cammy from Street Fighter, if you didn't know. I sometimes I'm like, my kids can't look at this because it's doesn't leave very much to the imagination.
Oh, yeah. I guess Cammy's outfit wouldn't. Hers would be about like Psylocke, I guess.
Yeah, that's
that's one thing I never could figure out about the X-Men movies. Like, they got nobody's outfit right, but they said they're like, Psylocke's must be comic accurate, and I'm like, this is the hill you guys are gonna die on, huh? Like, I'm not complaining, but like, really, that's the one that you're like, this is the one that has to be comic accurate. And Olivia Munn doing interviews later on is like, yeah, when they're doing the fight scenes, like half the outfit's up my ass crack because there's nothing there. It's just like, well, yeah.
well, yeah.
She was a good sport about it, though.
But no, like I say, the Wolverine outfit, I think they did it right. They got the right colors, they got the look, but they made it practical still.
Right. Well, it's like Deadpool's outfit also. Like it's you want it to look right, but except that the real world doesn't function exactly like a comic book. And I think like the MCU movies for the most part have struck the right tone of it looks like the comic outfits, but we know they're not spandex. Again, with Spider-Man being the exception, is the one character they're probably going to use that with. But most of the others, like it looks like the comic outfit, but also like that it's made of real materials that exist in a real world. Thank God they didn't just go CGI like the Green Lantern.
Oh, there's a topic that we should go over at some point, is talk about the Green Lantern and actually come up with good, things that it did okay. Besides maybe Sinestro's outfit, I thought Sinestro actually looked halfway decent. I mean, I think
I thought Sinestro looked good. I thought the end with Sinestro was forced. There's literally nothing in the movie that led me to believe that he was going to become Yellow Lantern Sinestro at the end of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you could always foreshadow it with him being the envious, but...
Right. I mean, that was literally like, they may as well just said, this happens in the comics, so by God, it has to happen in this movie, no matter how much sense it doesn't make. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, because it should have happened in a sequel, if they ever made one, but...
Yeah. And didn't just put Jon Stewart in it.
Well, luckily Deadpool ended that possibility.
Yes. Thanks to the time travel device.
Yes. Which he did. I did like the fact that he time traveled back to Adolf Hitler being an infant or a baby or whatever. It didn't end up doing anything. So.
Yeah. The only, and it would have massively complicated the movie, but I do kind of wish we would have got a little bit of Cable's backstory, just so people understand just how insane it is to go into the fact that his dad is Cyclops, who he is now older than. His mom is a clone of Jean Grey, made specifically to have a kid with Cyclops to fight Apocalypse, who infected him with the technovirus, which caused him to be sent into the future, where they trained him to use his powers. That's why only his arm is cybernetic. The virus couldn't get any farther. But just in case that failed, they made a clone of him who doesn't have the virus, who was raised by Apocalypse, and now time travels to fight his brother, whatever. And if we go further down the line, we'll find out that Cyclops' dad is still alive and is a space pirate. So, yeah. Yeah, for those of you who follow the text with superheroes, that came up one time talking about how the good things skip a generation, because Deadpool's like, Cable, how are you like your dad's like the total straight arrow? How are you cool like this? He's like, well, it skips a generation. He's like, what do you mean? He goes, my dad is a space pirate. And he's like, okay, I see it now. But yeah.
There's an IP that I doubt we'll ever see any sort of Starjammers.
Starjammers. No, not until they bring in the X-Men. Then maybe. I mean, that'd be nice if they did.
Well, they're like, hey, Guardians of the Galaxy worked in space. Let's throw Starjammers out there.
Let's throw more space pirates out there. Only this one actually has an alien crew. Or more alien crew. Chode, mainly. The big green lizard. Because Raza looks just like a regular guy with an eye patch and a cybernetic arm. And Hepzibah is a cat lady. And I don't remember who else is on the team. It might just be the four of them. I was thinking there's a fifth. I know for a while Carol Danvers was with them whenever she was out in space. She had a different persona, and I can't think of what it was called right off the top of my head. That was back in the 90s when they couldn't decide what on earth to do with Carol Danvers. Because for a long time she was just that lady that Rogue absorbed her powers from. And she's in a coma. And then she was that lady who drinks. like Tony Stark, who also, for those of you who never read the comics, Tony's true enemy is the bottle. He is an alcoholic. Which is why the moment they announced Robert Downey Jr. was the guy that's going to play him, I was like, this is the perfect casting right here. He understands. Because he's had some issues with the old substance abuse, and thankfully it seems like he's past them now.
I was going to say, at some point, I want to do a retrospective on the first Iron Man movie, the start of the MCU.
Yeah.
And personally, in my opinion, I mean, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite Marvel movie is the original. I think just steadily, not all of them. I mean, Winter Soldier, you bring that one up a lot. I think Winter Soldier was great.
I think I mentioned it in another video, but for me, outside of Infinity War and Endgame, because that's the capstone, that's the big final battle, and I think they are well done. For me, it's Winter Soldier, and it's for similar reasons to Watchmen, in that now Watchmen's because it's an adaptation, it's got a follow storyline, but I'm not going to say it's more than a comic book movie, but it has a very relevant plot for a comic book movie, and like really sets the tone. Like a lot of people that have never read Captain America or seen Captain America is like, oh, look at this guy, some uber patriotic doofus who just does what the government tells him to do. And it's like, no, he disagrees with the government probably more than he agrees with the government. He believes in the ideal of what America could be, what America is supposed to be trying to be, not what it is. There are probably several aspects of what it is in any decade that would disgust him as a character. And he knows the government isn't the people. He believes in the people. He believes in the goodwill, the charity, the all men are created equal, all that kind of thing. And that movie really highlights it by showing a wildly out of control branch of government that's really just Hydra, and who just wants to make a bunch of death bots to kill people.
And I like the fact that that movie, The Winter Soldier, tied in so well with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that when they were sitting in your living room and they were just like, so, you really want to go watch The Winter Soldier this weekend because it's going to have an impact on the show. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Then Winter Soldier happens, like, oh, holy shit. And the next episode's like, yeah, we're all Hydra agents. It's like, god damn. All right. And then the show got good.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, when Ward turned out to be...
yeah.
And then they're like, you know, because you saw him and he thought he was like the perfect S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He was like the goody two-shoes and all that. Then after that, they're like, no. He had the most effed up backstory that you could possibly imagine. And
yep. His teacher there, Bill Paxton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't but shortly after he filmed that or did that episode came out.
It was right around there that he died.
That was a terrible loss too. I mean, it's
yeah.
I think they were planning on making a sequel to Twister, and
well, they still could. I mean, it wouldn't be the same, but not just him. They also lost Philip Seymour Hoffman if they're gonna make a sequel to that.
Yeah, well, you can still get Jodie Foster, right? Or is that
no
Helen?
Helen.
Yeah. Sorry, I always get those two.
Maybe they can dig up her old coworker from Mad About You, Paul Reiser. He's still around. He's in Stranger Things.
He could be the company man.
Have you seen Stranger? You haven't seen Stranger
Things. No, but you mentioned he plays a very similar role.
This is a minor spoiler here, folks. I'm convinced they only put him in season 2 because of the fact he played Burke in Aliens. He works for the CIA, the company. And like you're spending the whole season expecting him to finally like show his true colors. Like, of course he's a company man. At the end, like he risks it all to save a bunch of random ass people, and you're like, oh my god, like there's no double cross here. What's going on? And it compounds in later seasons. Where like, no, he's like legitimately he's a good guy. He's trying to help the main character, and it's like, what is going on here? Like, we all know why you put him in here. Yeah. Yeah, Linda Hamilton's joining the last season, apparently, by the way.
She's going to be fighting robots.
Who knows?
In the future.
Could be. Hope so. But, yeah, or maybe she has a beastly love interest.
Maybe. You get Ron Perlman in there?
Yeah, there we go. For those of you who don't understand that reference, there was a TV show in the late 80s, early 90s. It's for Beauty and the Beast. but like in the modern day, I think, and she was Beauty, and Ron Perlman was the Beast. He didn't need much makeup.
Yeah.
Looks like a Cro-Magnon the way it is.
He was looking a little rough at the Comic-Con when he was up there.
I didn't go near him and see him, so.
Which, I mean, don't get me. I mean, he's getting up there. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's still good to see him out and everything, but.
Tell you what, I think the favorite thing I liked him in was an Enemy at the Gates. Did you ever see that? World War II movie, but it's on the Eastern Front. It's the battle for Stalingrad. It's Russians and Germans.
I don't believe I have, but
Jude Law's the main character. But he was another sniper, and he had been like training with the Germans, and then the Germans attacked. Like, oh, you're a prisoner now. And they busted out all his teeth, so he had new teeth put in that were made from bullet casings. And yeah,
as one does.
Well, I mean,
so X-Men, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't in the X-Men. Neither was Jude Law. Yeah, as far as the movies go, I'm conflicted on them because I think they're entertaining movies, but outside of two of them, I don't think they're very good X-Men movies because they just... The biggest problem for me is they should have started more towards like the beginning of the comic, where the comics start, instead of everything's already up and running, let's just bring in Wolverine and make him the poster kid. Now, I get why they did it, because then you just have someone do the exposition to Wolverine. And also Wolverine's the most popular X-Men character, even though I think he's wildly overused. But the problem is that makes everyone else a background character. And that's the big problem with the first movie. And then the second movie is just more of, oh, humans hate the mutants. And the third movie is, humans hate the mutants. And, it just on and on and on. It's like, Bryan Singer only ever read parts of the X-Men. It's like, no. They fight space pirates and aliens and robots and other mutants and people from the future. And they occasionally have a baseball game. Like, their lives are not just a constant, oh, the humans are trying to kill us. So it gets tiring where it's the same plot over and over again. Like X-Men 1 is, oh, Magneto made a machine to make mutants and it's all going to fizzle out. And credit to X-Men 1, it showed the level of hypocrite Magneto is. Oh, I would die for this cause. But Rogue, you're going to die for this cause. Sorry. Not really sorry. And just little things like that. And X-Men 2 is, oh, this guy, the bad guy has a plan. Magneto's going to co-opt the plan in the end. X-Men 3, Magneto's going to co-opt the plan in the end. X-Men Apocalypse, similar, except he was already on the bad guy side. And it's just like, First Class, Shaw has a plan. Magneto co-opts it in the end. And it's like, Jesus, just stop. Like, I get that people like Magneto, but he's not the only goddamn enemy they have on the mutant side. And so parts of it just get so tiring because it's the same damn thing again and again. And it's not even like the core of the comic. It's a fraction of the comic. And yeah, plus X-Men 3 was just bad.
Which X-Men? The Last Stand?
Yeah.
Okay. Not the third of the... because you got
the original X-Men Last Stand. Okay. I said two of them I think are the good ones. It's First Class, despite what I just said about the whole Magneto thing, and the fact that I really don't think Magneto should be able to kill Shaw in the way he did. That doesn't work as far as his powers at all. And
because you technically couldn't push something through his head.
Right, he absorbs all energy directed at him, which would include the kinetic energy of the coin. That's why he was able to just grab a grenade and have it explode in his hands and stop bullets. Like, the coin wouldn't be able to penetrate his head for the same reason. Unless we're to believe that Xavier shut off his powers, in which case Xavier's culpable in his murder. So, either way, because, Xavier's a shady bastard. And then the other one is Days of Future Past, which is probably the best of the X-Men movies. It's a legitimately good all-across-the-board movie. I thought X-Men Apocalypse was okay. I was just flabbergasted that they just went with it. They were just like, ancient Egyptian mutant with weird powers that we're not even going to hope to explain, maybe some alien technology, and go. So I was like, sure, go for it.
Also, probably features the best speedster scene to date in it with Quicksilver's saving of all the people in the mansion.
Yeah.
I want to, and I would say the two best. Well, I would say the one in or the three. I guess the three best scenes that I could think of in any movie happen to all be in Marvel. I don't think DC has gotten quite how speedsters should look on the big screen. At least not in a way that I find to be as appealing. But obviously, I like actually like the Eternals. The fight scene.
Fight at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, don't like the movie Eternals, but the fight at the very end shows like what a actual fight. Like if the Justice League were duking it out with each other, what that would look like, should actually look like.
Yeah.
Versus what anything we got in any of the DC movies. Then you've got the like I said, the Quicksilver running through the mansion, and then the one scene where they played Time in a Bottle, where he was running around the room and.
Yeah, that kitchen there in the Pentagon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like how everybody's like, okay, all of these bullets just missed us, and
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was also the moment where it's like, man, this guy could solve all the problems of this movie. That's why the moment they get to the airport, like, all right, go home. We're gonna go handle this. Didn't work so well against Apocalypse.
No, Apocalypse could see him.
Yeah.
That is the one thing, though, I did mention about the DC movies is that I did like the one scene where the Flash is running around Superman, and Superman,
you see his eye shift, and then the Flash has it look like, oh shit. Yeah,
that was pretty good. I gotta say, but everything else, like from what I've seen of and I have not seen the new Flash movie, but from some of the scenes that I've seen, looks very. I get it. He is running super fast across whatever, but they should have looked at the Eternals and said, this is the way that you make somebody look like they're running really, really fast.
I'm pretty sure there's a comic where he runs across space. So, don't ask me how that happens.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, he's definitely faster than probably both.
Oh, no, he is Quicksilver, like his official top speed is somewhere around like 1,000 or 2,000 miles an hour. Like, the Flash is literally beyond the speed of light. Like, there's no doubt which one of those two is faster. And I assume the same would hold true for whichever one of the Eternals it was.
So technically what he did...
9 characters in the movie, the only one I can remember is Icarus.
So technically what he did in the mansion is not possible. He couldn't run that fast.
Because, I mean, I'd have to sit there with like a stopwatch and figure out the times and everything, but probably not.
I think it was a little faster. And also, I always wondered, how did he know that there was something going on at that point? Because the explosion was happening in the basement.
Well, remember, he ran up at super speed. I assume he then went into the mansion at super speed and then saw things happen. It was like, oh. And
I didn't run
that's my assumption.
He didn't run fast enough to save Havoc.
Well, Havoc wanted out of that contract.
Yeah, that's the way to get out.
Yeah.
Well, that's just like Cyclops when he...
Yes, just like Cyclops in The Last Stand. No, he didn't want out of that, by the way, folks. For those of you that don't know the story there, he got fired because he joined the cast of Superman Returns, which was also directed by Bryan Singer, and also has problems, lots of them. I despise that movie. No,
and now it seems like they're fine with people kind of going back and forth between Marvel and DC. Like,
yeah, I mean they didn't care whenever Halle Berry did it. It was specific to I can't think of his name, the guy that plays him off the top of my head, but the guy that played Cyclops. And then he came back in Days of Future Past for the future scenes. James Marsden, that's his name. Yeah.
No, it's just, and honestly, I never did. I think in the beginning they were worried that they would draw sales from each other's movies, but I think they really realized that.
Yeah, I'm just glad that DC is finally over like the really stupid thinking that gripped them in the early 2000s. Whenever Superman Returns was being made, they were going to cancel Smallville because they didn't think people could understand that these are different realities. That this and this are different. But someone was like, guys, the ratings. I mean, the show went on for 10 seasons. It had good ratings. Also had, in my opinion, the best version of Lex Luthor. Like Michael Rosenbaum is who they should get to play him in the movies. Although I'd also like to see Tom Welling come back as Superman. He's got the physique. He always had the character right for Clark. Like, it was just, from what I understand, he had no interest in ever being in the suit. Was why you never saw it until the final shot of the show, where he goes up the elevator shaft, comes out on the roof, and opens up the shirt, and he's got the symbol underneath there.
Well, if DC ever does a like an Infinite Earths thing, they also need to bring Nicolas Cage back as Superman.
This is just what I've heard. But apparently, the footage they shot is used somewhere in the Flash movie. Like, I've heard that in a couple places.
And it should be. It should be, most definitely.
Yeah, I guess is the Supergirl TV series had like a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of thing?
Yes.
And they went to the Smallville Earth at one point. And the other Lex from that show confronts Clark, and he's like, "Who the hell are you?" It's like, "I'm Lex." "You're not Lex Luthor." Like, I know what Lex Luthor looks like. And he pulls out kryptonite, and he's like, "Why aren't you falling over?" He's like, "Oh, kryptonite, I remember this." Then punches him in the face, and he's like, "I gave up my powers. Kryptonite doesn't work on me anymore." He's like, "Why the hell would you give up your powers?" And you hear Lois inside. They have a kid together. That's why. And they got Erica Durance back as Lois from the show too. But yeah, that was pretty good. Also, interesting side note, the guy that plays Lex Luthor there plays Lex Luthor's son, nephew, something in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh, The Quest for Peace.
Yes, Nuclear Man.
I liked how I liked his dialogue in the movie.
Did he have any? You mean kind of like the same as Zod's one big enforcer? Goofy
well, no, he did have a couple like Superman, and they want to throw a rock, and then
I was gonna say, now having said what I said, I do like Gene Hackman as Lex too. He's just in this weird position in the timeline because it's at the end of the 70s, early 80s, so the Crisis on Infinite Earths hasn't happened yet. So comic book wise, he's still just a mad scientist. But the movie version was like mad scientist plus land grifter. So like he was already partway to the businessman part and dressed like a businessman. So I do kind of wonder if the movie interpretation didn't influence the comic choice. But yeah, most people only know the businessman because that's what it's been since like 1985. Yeah. Yeah. I do wonder what the plan is to introduce the X-Men into the MCU, though.
Deadpool.
I mean, what are they going to do? Just have them whole cloth come over from another dimension? I mean,
well,
because otherwise it's going to be, so this is why we set out the world-ending calamities, folks. Now, there's an easy excuse if they do it right. The only problem is they're basically going to do the same thing with the Fantastic Four, and it's going to, like, whichever one comes second, they're going to be like, really? Again? Is they're off in space. They're fighting the Shi'ar or something.
Well, they had the perfect opportunity at the end of what happened in the
Snap.
Yes, the snap.
Well, they could still use that for what heavily triggers the X Factor gene. The X-Men could just be the few that were there. That'd be the easy way to do it, in my opinion. Because it's still energy. Because I think the original 5 X-Men, even though the whole point of Stan Lee creating the concept of mutants was so he didn't have to create a stupid backstory for everyone how they got their powers, I think all 5 of the X-Men actually do have a stupid backstory for that. I just don't remember what they all are. Beast, I know it's his dad worked in a nuclear power plant, if I remember right. The other 4, I don't remember.
Well, and I think the MCU, as we had in our one discussion, I think before they introduce, like the X-Men or the Fantastic Four, they need to go back and rethink things because otherwise they're gonna. I mean, there's reasons why like with the Star Wars franchise, why there was talks that there was some talks about selling the rights back to possibly George Lucas or whoever that single buyer was. I think if they obviously don't change course, that even if they do release the X-Men, they're gonna have a hard time with getting those crowds back again.
Yeah, yeah, they've got to take a step back and seriously examine where things have not been going right. And uh, I don't want to sound like a downer, but I'm pretty sure the Marvels is not going to be where things turn around for the MCU. Like, I'm about 99% certain on that. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
And from what I've seen so far, it just kind of makes me think like a Disney Plus show, which isn't bad. I mean, Disney Plus shows can be good, but it didn't give me that.
Yeah, it's because it's Carol Danvers, who some people do like her as a character, a lot of people don't. I don't know which is the larger group. I guess we're going to find out. Because you could make the argument that Captain Marvel made the money it did because it was wedged between the two finale movies, and people thought they had to go see it to understand those movies. When, oh, joke's on them, they didn't. Uh, and so people might be a little. Plus, there's the potential for burnout, which could be driving some of the others going down. And then you've got the fact that the other two characters are from Disney Plus shows that people might not have watched or might not have liked. Personally, I thought Monica Rambeau was just fine, and I still haven't watched the one with Kamala Khan yet. I need to, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I mean, and
from everyone has seen this told me it's good, but I just haven't watched it yet.
And I've been playing the Avengers game on the PS4, and the first campaign you play as Kamala Khan.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's I mean that was pretty decent. Like I didn't.
From the parts I've seen of her in the trailers, she looks like an enjoyable character. You know, we just have to I just have to see the show to see the context. But yeah, I don't know. It looks like Freaky Friday meets the MCU, kind of.
With everybody switching places.
Yeah. And hey, there's like 3 or 4 different versions of Freaky Friday, so clearly that concept sells. We'll just have to see. But so far, very mixed reviews for Secret Invasion. And I didn't even realize till today that I already missed an episode. Like, that's how undedicated I am to that show at the moment. And it'll be tomorrow before I watch it anyway, so I'll just watch both episodes.
Well, I also noticed that I'm a few episodes behind on Strange New Worlds as well, but...
Oh, yeah, I still need to finish season 1.
No,
not for lack of interest. I'm watching with someone else, and our schedules just haven't synced up.
But I mean, so far with the basic plot of Secret Invasion, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, there's some things where I guess it is taking place in the 90s.
Secret Invasion,
or is that no?
No, it's now.
Yeah,
or whatever the current moment in the MC is, because I think they're technically in the future at this point. But
yeah, but that's right, because the parts of when Talos is first coming in is in the 90s.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's right. Then it goes into now. So the problem I have with it is that with everything else that's gone on, I think that they should have laid more into. Look what happened in New York. This is why people are going to be apprehensive about aliens living amongst us, because the Chitauri invasion kind of soured people.
Yeah, the Chitauri invasion and the giant purple alien that wiped out half the life on the planet with a snap of his finger. Complete with his own alien army.
Because I think because they don't even mention like that being a thing, and
except for with Nick Fury, they keep mentioning it like that just like
the snap bothered him, but
because it's like something that just there was no possible way he could control or plan for it.
But I think the point is that I think some of the story things is that it's not that people wouldn't be willing to accept them; it's because of things that have happened recently. We'd be less likely to accept aliens and into the realm of things because, well, people see a scroll, they look different than the Chitauri, but the Chitauri, the last thing they remember is them almost having to nuke New York because of an alien invasion. Yeah. And also, it makes me wonder how often people ran across scrolls, because if every single time you kill one, if one shows up, then um, uh, the oh, you think it would happen more often. The people are like, well, I just shot this guy and he turned into a green alien, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, or just through like random car accidents or things, or plane crash or
Well, yeah,
whatever.
because like in Captain Marvel, they that's like there was like one car accident, and it's like, oh well, Phil Coulson's an alien.
Yeah,
Um, I'm still hoping for in Secret Invasion that they bring back Phil Coulson for just at least a cameo. I doubt it's going to happen, but
have
um,
him be a scroll again.
or yeah, even if he was a scroll, that would be fine. I think for the fact that in Agents of Shield they weighed so heavily on Nick Fury bringing him back for a purpose that it just seems. I get that Agents of Shield and the MCU diverged after the Winter Soldier. It at one point finally. I don't even think it diverged so much that you couldn't say that they could have still been in the same whatever, because most of the stuff they stayed on their own. I mean, I'd like to see Quake come back.
Yeah, I know people online really hope that she's the main character they hope for to see.
When Secret Invasion.
Well, just in general to come back. Because it depends on, like I said, I haven't seen the last episode, so I have no idea if this is happening. But there's a series, I think it's 12 issues, called Secret Warriors, which is about a group that Nick Fury puts together, which is where he finds out that Hydra has secretly infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and a bunch of other things. And her character, Quake, is one of the people that he recruits that he trusts. And so some people thought that maybe they were going to merge the two plot concepts to have him have to call up the handful of people that he trusts to deal with the Skrulls. But that has not appeared to have happened thus far. Plus, like, virtually all those characters are characters that don't exist in the MCU yet. So, but no, you mentioned the fight in the Eternals.
Yeah.
I still think Marvel should just go for it and make the Squadron Supreme movie and see just how much DC's willing to put up with. Because the two companies had a good-natured rivalry for many decades, and so they had versions of each other's characters. Typically, as Marvel copying DC. Although, interesting note, Aquaman is actually the copy. Namor's the original there.
You mean Namor?
No, I don't. And so Marvel has a group called the Squadron Supreme, who are essentially duplicates of the Justice League. There's a guy named Hyperion. He's their version of Superman. Nighthawk is their Batman. I think it was the Wizard is their version of the Flash, although they've given him a different name now. It's something Racer. Probably for the best.
Yeah, because the Wizard sounds like a...
I mean, it makes sense. Whizzing noise, but like, there's also the fact that his color was yellow. And everyone's like, so is he taking a whiz? By the way, the Wizard was in the second season of Jessica Jones, the first episode.
Yeah. And he was a heavier set guy, too, which is...
Then there's the Golden Archer, who's obviously Green Arrow. And just a number of other knockoffs.
Dr. Spectrum, or
Dr. Spectrum is the Green Lantern. Power Princess is Wonder Woman, and they have an Aquaman, but I don't remember its name. So the original team came out a long time ago, but in the 80s, Mark Grunwald, I believe, wrote a 12-issue series because he had this really spectacular idea, and he went to DC to do like presumably an Elseworlds Justice League story. They're like, no, we don't want to do it. So he went back to Marvel, and he's like, hey, wait a minute, we've got knockoffs of the Justice League. I'll just make the same story, but I'll just use the Squadron Supreme. And it's a really good story. It's a whole lot of like, so you got all these unstoppable characters who all of a sudden decide, hey, we're going to fix the world. And they have all kinds of wonderful dynamite ideas on how to do that are just god-awful and just crush personal liberty like it's nothing. And yeah, then there's all the like just the weirdo comic stuff that happens. Like another Hyperion from another dimension shows up and fights Hyperion. Nighthawk goes to the 616 Marvel Universe trying to get the Avengers to come back with him to fight the rest of the team because he's totally against what they're doing. Just a bunch of weird stuff like that. So to me, Marvel should just go for it and just make that movie, the Squadron Supreme movie, and show DC how to actually use their characters. But even in the comics, believe it's a Deadpool comic. There's a poster in the background, and it's Hyperion versus Nighthawk. And the comment down below is, "You won't believe it. Their mother has the same name." And it's just it's great. I was like, yes, someone got it.
But I like the fact that Marvel had created 3 Superman type clones because they had Hyperion, they had
and then Gladiator,
and then Sentry.
Yeah.
And each one kind of shows the issue with having somebody like Superman in the comic.
From a aesthetic viewpoint, Gladiator's my favorite because he's the one that kind of looks like Superman. Instead of the diamond with an S, it's a triangle with a G, and the colors of his outfit are similar. But then he's a blue alien with a mohawk.
But his is that his is confidence.
Yeah.
Hyperion is just what happens when you give somebody absolute power, and then Sentry's got kind of the evil within.
Yeah, Sentry's what happens when you're a lunatic.
Yes.
Yeah, Hyperion has been depicted as good and bad, just depending on the writer.
I did like him though when in World War Hulk, where him and Hulk, they go at it at full strength.
Hyperion or Sentry?
Sentry. Yeah, Sentry. Sorry but anyways, it was Sentry and Hulk and World War Hulk, and that's how they end the comic because they both knock each other out.
Yeah.
But
Hulk must have gotten stronger because in Marvel vs. DC, Superman won that fight.
Yeah, well, this was,
of course, that was also judged by like fan vote. So
this was a little bit different. This was like the ultimate rage in Hulk. Because I think what happens is that usually Hulk gets knocked out before he gets to that power, and this is him
knocked out or leaves.
This was him brooding, and pretty much when they flew in, he flew on top of the spaceship, punching asteroids out of the way.
Yeah.
And then because not only did he defeat all of the Avengers, he fought Doctor Strange with the power of gosh, now I can't think of it. Was of some elemental god or whatever, and yeah, Hulk crushes him, even though Hulk shouldn't have been able to. But just the rage. They said when Hulk stepped on the eastern seaboard, it caused earthquakes. It's a good story, but
yeah,
that's where he put all of the Avengers had the disc on them, just like he did on Sakaar and story. So if they ever do a Hulk one, that's one they should do because they already had him going to Sakaar. He already in She-Hulk they brought his son into play, so it's all there to bring that out. But the problem is I think they've already went past that point with him going into Smart Hulk. So
yeah. Well, that'll happen. Yeah, the big problem there, as I understand it, is that they don't completely own the rights for the Hulk, so they can use the Hulk in other people's movies to their heart's content. But to make one by itself, I think Paramount has the release rights for it.
That's changed recently.
Has it finally done that?
Yes.
I trust you if you say it has.
No. Yeah, I've seen a story on it. That's why I brought it up. Just double check on that. But yeah, I saw a post on it that it had switched recently. Yeah. According to the filing, 2006 has confirmed that Universal agreed to distribute the. I've seen this recently. Oh, well, anyways. 15-year period. distributed rights for from Hulk would be set to revert to Marvel in June of 2023 based on the June release date of 2008. So, with that being said, the timeline is up for Paramount's ownership of it. So,
well, maybe we'll see a standalone Hulk movie then.
I think they can do it right. I mean, even if they went with Smart Hulk, or if they went with Joe Fixit.
That's what I want to see. Mob Enforcer Hulk, who turns into the Hulk when the sun goes down. Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite Mego comics is from that. I don't know if it's Mego or Mego. I think it's Mego. There are these 8-inch figures back in the 70s. They're for boys, but they're dolls. They had clothes, okay? They're dolls. And they made them for a bunch of different things. And there was a toys magazine back whenever magazines were a thing. For those of you that don't know, that's a whole bunch of paper put together with a bunch of stories that are out of date by the time you read them. So there was a comic inside, a Twisted Mego Theater, that followed Spider-Man and assorted misadventures. And so one issue he runs out of money, so they have to go to Las Vegas. And they're sitting there at the card table, and he's thinking about something. Well, Professor X is sitting next to him. And he's like, fools, as you prattle on, I'm reading your minds. I know what all of your cards are. Well, then you see the security room. Awatu is the one watching the monitors, and Paunch from Chips comes up because he's the only cop figure they have. And he's like, can't you see he's clearly cheating? He's like, I can, but alas, my vow forbids me from interacting. And he's like, what the hell good are you? It goes down there, and so they chase him off. And Joe Fixit Hulk goes chasing after him. And they finally get him in the back alley, like, break his legs. And Professor X, oh, the irony. Because he was able to run. This is, And Spider-Man's like, wait, counting cards is illegal? I'm just going to switch games now. Thor ended up as a showgirl. They never did explain how. They didn't have many questions. But he was topless with tassels. And, Spider-Man got some money. No, I think he took out a credit card at the end is how he got his money. But, yeah. Yeah, that was one of the two greatest ones. The other involved the Infinity Gauntlet and Aunt May. Spider-Man wakes up and there's all kinds of pancakes in the kitchen. He's like, "Did you forget to take your crazy pills this morning?" And she's like, "No, I've just been cooking with this glove that I bought." And there's a little note down at the bottom. It's like, "Yeah, this was back in like the Christmas special 5 years ago. See, we do care about continuity in this comic." And it really was. Dr. Doom was having a garage sale. And so she bought it there. And so he like looks out the window and sees like all the Earths from the multiverse. And is like, well, I'm just going to go watch some TV before the old biddy destroys everything. And like with each step he's taking, his outfit is changing from like Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2099, all kinds of things. And so he sits down on the couch and the other heroes come to stop her. And he's like, well, I'm going to do something I've never done before. And he finally puts on his web shooters. And that's where it ends. It comes the next issue. He shoots him with silly string. And you're like, what the hell is this? He goes, yeah, it's a promotional item. They send them to me. They sell them. I get money from it. And so Doctor Strange has to assemble the Defenders to take her down. And they have this awesome team show up to fight her. And she's just like, oh, you can have it. I want my other one with the ducks on it better. And he's just like, okay. And the Silver Surfer's like, ducks. Like it's just some foreign concept to him. But the best part of that's when it's stuck, I think, is the Valiant universe. And Turok's just like, take me with you. I have video games. And they're just like, how did you people run out of characters when your whole goal was to make video games out of all of them? For whatever it's worth, Valiant has apparently made a comeback. I don't read any of their stuff, but I guess they're like back to being profitable somehow. But yeah, if I ever figure out if those are if any one of you out there know if those are collected somewhere, not here with our good friend Footy.
Oh, Footy Cat.
Let me know. It's called Twisted Mego Theater. It was by Wizard Magazine, the Toy Fair issues. But yeah, if you see them collected anywhere online or whatever, read them. They are fantastic. They play up all the stereotypes. Like Iron Man's constantly drunk. Spider-Man's, poor and everything else. And just everything. Kirk, the few episodes Kirk's in, he's a constant womanizer. Yeah, just great A. And some characters are both their characters and like the actors who played them. Like Blade is also Wesley Snipes. because he's on a plane with the Red Skull sitting next to him at one point. And he's like, they're going to Las Vegas, and so the Red Skull's looking at this book on gambling, and Blade's like, always bet on black. For those of you who don't know, it's one of his lines from Passenger 57. And the Red Skull's like, the book says not always. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun comic, if you can find it. Otherwise, we'll do a show all about those. I'll regale you with tales from them or something. Maybe I'll actually put printed screenshots up, but probably not. That's a lot of work. But, yeah. So, I mean, kind of interested to see how the X-Men and Fantastic Four make their way into the MCU.
Can this lead to the revival of the MCU? Make it to... I think they need. I think it needs some fresh stuff fed into it. I think there's a lot of fatigue with the current characters. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, at some point, it'd be good to switch over. If you switch over to the X-Men and Fantastic Four, you could say, okay, these characters can kind of go off to the side, rest a little bit, let's bring in some new.
And then we'll bring everyone back for an adaptation of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars. Not the original from the 80s, but the current one from like 10 years ago. Not Secret War. It's a different series where a bunch of heroes invade Latveria. The other three all involve the Beyonder. So that's the ones I'm talking about, not the Latveria thing.
Yeah, because I think they're going to have to kind of figure out what to do with Kane at this point. Because
yeah, they might have screwed the pooch there with Kang.
Though supposedly, a lot of people have Ezra Miller. They've kind of looked past.
Yeah, they might not, since The Flash is like crashing and burning at the box office, though. Like I think Disney. Excuse me. I think Disney was waiting to see how The Flash did before they reacted. And even though I don't think The Flash is crashing and burning because everyone's like, oh man, screw Ezra Miller. Because everyone I tell about that, they're like, what'd he do? No one knows what he did except for people that read comic book websites. America at large has no idea. So I don't think that seriously contributed to the downfall of that movie. I think it's just the fatigue setting in.
And I think
plus it's DC. Plus, I think movies are still not really recovered from COVID. You know.
Well, I think the thing is, and this has even been my my feeling on a lot of it, is that when you can wait just a little bit for it to come out on streaming, there's less.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's not part of the problem, or part of the thing is that they're making more money on the streaming than they are in the actual movies. But I think the other problem is that they're putting too much money into the production of the movie versus what they're expecting to get out. I think that dial is.
Yeah. They're okay. Like Indiana Jones is a perfect example. It didn't matter how good that movie was; it was never going to succeed. Its budget was $300 million,
and it
like by Hollywood math, it has to make $1 billion almost to break even. Like there just aren't many movies that are above $1 billion, and there's no reason to believe Indiana Jones 5 was going to be one of them.
And honestly, looking at it, I don't see. I mean, obviously the problem is that people's salaries. I can imagine Harrison Ford's salary was quite a lot, because if you look at it, if you took people's salaries out of it, it's a $50 million movie.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen it, but I believe you.
But I mean, you don't have any set pieces that are so over the top. I mean, like if I compare it to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there's not. I mean, technically, I feel like that one could have been, if you again taking salaries out of it, could be a $50 million movie.
Yeah.
But, I just look at $300 million. I'm like, I don't know where the money would have gone to.
Well, I mean, to me, the test will be compare it to Mission Impossible, because Cruise isn't cheap, and the stunts aren't cheap because of the danger aspect to all of it. But I also have every confidence that movie will make a profit.
Yeah.
I don't know what its budget is off the top of my head, but I bet it will be less, and I bet it will end up making far more money. And, maybe it's because most of the rest of the cast, aside from like the IMF team, most of the rest of the cast are probably nobodies.
Well, they don't have to pay for a stunt double for Tom Cruise.
No, he needs no stunt double. He is the stunt double.
Yeah, I mean, I may not agree with agree with a lot with Tom Cruise, but when it comes to his acting, when it comes to the
Oh yeah, no, I think he's legitimately crazy, but acting wise, I'm on board.
yeah, I think compared to any other actor out there, he's the real deal. He's like, I'll do all of this. I mean, hell, I mean, he's pretty much like the American Jackie Chan when it comes to stunts now. He's like, I'll do all this stuff. Now, he doesn't do as crazy and, like stunts that I'm surprised Jackie didn't die from.
Yeah,
But
yeah. If any of you have never watched a Jackie Chan movie, watch it. Then stay through the credits. You'll see all the misses on those stunts.
yeah, almost every one of his older movies, he ended up in the hospital for something.
Yeah.
Because he would do all this. He's like, no, I'll jump off this vehicle onto this tiny thing over here. And
I'll jump across this alleyway here on the 5th floor and land on that fire escape over there. I got this. It's like, all right,
here I go. And can't have a net below it because you want to see that shot of the street below as he jumps across.
Yeah.
Jeez. But, anyways.
Yeah, you had a little bit of that with the Daredevil movie. Jennifer Garner and
It's funny you mentioned
Colin Farrell did most of their own stunts, and they basically turned to Ben Affleck like, "Come on, don't be a baby. You can do your own stunts. Come on!" And they convinced him to do most of his too. So yeah.
Supposedly, the rumor is that Jennifer Garner is going to be making an appearance in Deadpool
as Elektra.
Yes.
All right.
If it's just a rumor, it's sad. But if it turns out to be true, that is going to be the great.
Daredevil movie is okay. It's the Elektra movie that's terrible. She was good in the Elektra movie, but it was a terrible movie.
Yeah, but no, I mean that would be great. I mean that's if they do that and somehow get Wesley Snipes back as Blade.
His tax problems are over. He can come out to the movies again.
But I'm trying to see how long we've been going at this here.
Quite a while, probably. So yeah, that's some. Folks, let us know what you thought of this general concept, because this is pretty much how the podcasting would go, except we'd have microphones somewhere and it's going to be on, I don't know, Spotify or something. But also the video segments, we'll do that too. Because we've been kind of hitting the idea around, and thanks to Jim here, we have a little bit better place to record. So the idea is becoming more viable by the day. So yeah, this is kind of a test run for that, of just taking a concept and just going. Now the big difference will be we'll probably have a list of topics and we'll have a clock running somewhere, so we have it out like we'll know like, okay, we don't want to go past this, and we'll hit that and kind of wrap things up and move on to the next thing. But this just was free form and just going, because I know we've gone for probably an hour at least, over an hour at this point. So probably gonna be more like 30 or 40 minutes tops on the topics, what we shoot for, and tackle multiple topics. And we'll try to make them topical. That's been kind of the other problem, is what are we going to talk about other than whatever's happening at the moment. So we'll have to see how that goes. We'll probably still fiddle with that a bit. But anyway, point being, let us know in the comments your thoughts on this. And also, something else we've been kind of wondering. Do folks who actually watch this, do you actually watch the video, or do you primarily just listen to it? Because I've been wondering for a while, because based on the comments I get, I really feel like people just listen to it, because sometimes I get comments like, hey, that's really XYZ, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, yes, I made a note of that in the physical video. If you're watching the screen, you would have seen that. And so I believe that most people listen and don't actually watch. So I'm just kind of curious about that. If you could let us know. And on that note, because I think more people are listening than watching, we do have a Twitter account. It's at Real Geek Cabal, and that's where we try to put announcements for upcoming videos and whatever Brad can find that's funny on the internet that day. He throws it up there too sometimes. And if that ever really takes off, we'll do like polls and contests and stuff on there too. But otherwise, let us know here what you guys think, what kind of topics you would want to see covered in that kind of thing. But otherwise, like, share, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. And yeah, other than that, See you in the funny pages, I guess.